Hello, welcome everybody. I'm Michael. I am doing this for the first time, so I'm learning. So hopefully you can see me and hear me. Um, I'm just waiting for the YouTube to open up so that I can see that we're going. All right, cool. So welcome. I am going to cover a few things on the method, and mostly they talk about the practice tracks. Um, so let me just do this. Okay, the chat. If you drop in, feel free to leave any comments or questions. And if you're watching this in the future, after we've gone live, I want to hear from you. Just let me know if you have any questions. It'll help me to plan future versions of this as we get going. So I will keep an eye on the chat window just in case anybody has any questions. So thanks for watching. Today, what I want to talk about are basically the practice tracks. I've noticed several people have been ordering the practice tracks, and I just want to kind of go over some different creative ways they can work for your kid or for you as a teacher. So let's just jump into it. First of all, again, if you're just joining, my name is Michael Stegner. And if you want to get updates on when I do these again, just feel free and like and subscribe to the channel, and it should give you notification. I think especially at the bell icon. Okay, so let's get into the practice tracks. Excuse me. First thing is the practice tracks are there's 4 of them for each song: slow, medium, fast, and pro. And the tempos, if I remember correctly, the slow is at 60 BPM, medium 75, fast at 90, and the pro can be, I think it's at 110 usually, sometimes they're 105 depending on if the piece is really difficult. We'll do, some of them we did at like 100 or 105, but I think 110 is the standard. The difference between pro is not only is it faster, but it gets rid of the piano part, so the student is on their own to kind of hold their part down while they're hearing all the band playing around them. The pro is pretty tricky sometimes for the really little kids, like if they're 4 or 5, young 6. Sometimes if they're especially in their book, if they're in book 2, 3, 4, and 5, the pro can be really tricky. So we just have to be flexible. Some of the really young kids, like at 4 or 5, we can do slower than slow if we need to, just with a metronome or with the teacher. Sometimes I'll just improvise an accompaniment part that's at, say, 45 BPM, since we don't have one that slow. So slower than slow is a good idea sometimes. The reasons to use them, well, I mean, we tested this method out for 10 years before we made it available to the public, and it's just night and day when students use the practice tracks at home. It just makes the student enjoy their progress a lot more. It takes a lot of pressure off parents, because the parents don't have to help really at all with the practicing, and as teachers it's been great because the students show up really prepared for each lesson. They just sound good when they walk in, so we don't have to spend a lot of time helping them get up to speed on something. So those are some of the main ones. It's more fun, it's more exciting, it's more musical than using a metronome. It develops their ear because they hear all the parts and they hear how their piano part harmonizes with the other parts. Rhythm, they hear the drum parts, they hear how they can interact with the drums. It really develops your ears. Develops your reading skills because you can't pause and hesitate every time you're not 100% sure what to play. It gets rid of all the pauses. And like I said before, it's just usually a lot more fun for them once they get into the groove. They might resist at the beginning because it is more challenging, but if that's the case, just hang with the slow practice tracks for a little while longer than you will need to later on. So let me pull up. I have a couple examples of how we use the practice tracks. When I first wrote the method and when we were testing it, we just had this kind of mantra we used around the music school in Seattle at the time that was just do 4 or more every day. Like, so when people say, how much should my child practice? I never had a set time, like, 15 minutes, 10 minutes a day. I never did that. It was always, they just need to play through every song 4 or more times every day. And so that's why we have 4 different speeds of the practice tracks, so they can do each slow, medium, fast, pro once a day for each of the songs. For the first songs in the book, I intentionally wrote them really short, 4 measures. So typically you're assigned 4 songs in a week, for example. Each song at the max may take you 30 seconds to get through. So you're not going to need to spend much time practicing when you're in the musical monsters, especially beatbots, same, a little bit more because the pieces get a little harder, especially the middle of the book. So your practice time will just need to go up when you get into book 3 or 4 as things get harder. Middle of 3 till 4, those pieces can get pretty tricky. So basically, just that's what we used to always say, 4 or more. Over time, we kind of refined that approach, and we still would say that, we still emphasize it. It's still in the books. It's still like would be in any training I would do for the method. But let me just share a couple ways we would use the tracks now. I'm going to share my screen and pull up. I just want to show you how the tracks work. So let me just share my screen. Let's see here. And if you're joining in live, I'm still learning how to watch all the screens. And if you're joining in live, welcome. Feel free and drop a note in the chat. I'll check that out here in just a second. If you have questions, feel free and ask. And if you're seeing this after the fact, still want to hear from you. Just ask any questions. Okay, you should be able to see sticky magnets. But basically the way the practice tracks works are like there's a count-in, not a human voice count-in. I wanted it to be more like musical, emulating like a band practice track. So you hear a click, click, that's like 1, 2, and then 4 clicks. 1, 2, ready, go. That's kind of the way to think of this. So here's an example. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, play. So that's how they work. And you'll hear it through all the levels. So let me just jump to another level. So here's something from book 2, beatbots. So here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, go. Okay, and just to show you what pro does, pro is without the piano part. So you're just playing with the band solo. Faster. 2, 1, 2, ready, go. So you can see what's on the page is not in the practice track. So just a heads up on that. Okay, so as far as using the practice tracks in a more unique way, let's take a look at some like games that we made. You can do this with props around the house. For example, if you have like Pokemon cards, if you have like little small toys that you could put on one side of the piano and then move to the other, that's totally fair game. This is something that I did when COVID happened and developed this, and it's worked amazingly well. So I'll just show you how this works. So let's say you play let's say the student plays through something one of the songs at with a slow practice track. And let's say they do really well, then then they can move one of these characters over to this other side. Okay, that's no mistakes. When you do this, you want to be kind of like a very non-emotional judge. So if they played it well and it's unquestionably like dialed in, then you move this over. If there were any glitches, you just don't move something over and they try it again. So let's say they do it a couple times, finally they get it really solid. The reason why I'm saying that is because you want them to be able to do this on their own. You don't want them to keep looking at you and say, did I get it? Did I get it? Did I get it? You want them to know, like, okay, I got it. That was really good. They will. Just don't let them get too dependent on you, or else it kind of like defeats the purpose of this. Okay, so then they get this character over here, Yoda, and then they do the medium practice track. Okay, so medium is next, and let's say they get medium also. So then Darth Vader comes over. All right, and the goal is to get all the characters over to this other ship. Okay, so let's say they do the fast version and they kind of hit a bump and they have a glitch and it doesn't go so well as the last ones did. Then you move this one back and you go from fast back to medium. And then let's say they go to medium and they hit another bump and they miss it and they make a little mistake or whatever. Then you move Yoda back. Okay, so now you're back to slow. And you try it again, slow practice track, and let's say they get it. Okay, so they can move Yoda back. Let's say they go up to medium and there's some glitches. You move Yoda back. You just want to be very impartial. Just when it sounds good, move it over. When it doesn't, keep it on the left side. Okay, and then what you'll find is once they get used to this, they'll be frustrated. Trust me, they'll be frustrated the first few, even a couple weeks when they do this. But when they start to figure out how to like build on each repetition and improve on each repetition, they get really into it and they improve really quickly. It's kind of like mind-boggling how fast they can move once they kind of get in the groove. So okay, slow, perfect. We'll do that way. Medium, perfect. All right, fast, perfect. And then pro, perfect. So they've won the game. But one thing I do, just for fun, it's also to help get them ready for performances. It eliminates like performance anxiety, stuff like that with kids. Is I'll say let's do an all or nothing round. So let's do the pro one more time. If you get it right, you win. All these people over here on the Millennium Falcon move over. If you get it, if there's any glitches, then all of these characters get moved back over and you got to start from slow all over again. So that if they get used to that and they can relax in that moment and they can just like use all the tricks that we use to teach them, it's crazy how relaxed and confident they get when they perform at recitals and stuff. So this is and just to let you know, once they do the all or nothing, then we move all these people over. I don't know, you probably only need 4 of these, but we put 7 on here, or 5. We put 8, I guess. Okay, so then we just go to the next song in the set and try to move them back over to their home where they started. Okay, so you can do that. So we did a few. I just made a few of these, just like Pokemon, dinosaurs, Frozen. It just really teaches them how to practice and how to stay engaged. It just is kind of a miracle, honestly, how quickly they learn to play with this stuff. Excuse me. Let me just check the chat to make sure we're still live. Okay, we're good. I think we're still good. Anyway, so that's that. If you have any questions, definitely I want to hear from you just on that, on the practice tracks. The thing I'll say about this is the idea is like to never do something 4 times in a row the same way, or 5 times in a row. That's the way I was taught. That's the way I taught for a long time. And just after taking some neuroscience education classes and researching and observing my teaching as I changed that, it just like is so much better if every time the student does a repetition, if they change something a little bit. So like in book 2, you know, that's usually when if the tempo, if they're really solid and you want to kind of push them into new territory and get them really like growing and developing still beyond just going faster to the pro version, then one thing that I'll do a lot of times is just say like, okay, we're doing like that's the song that I did earlier in the video, the one that's called Working Together, you know. This one. So if they have that and they're really sounding good, you know, especially if they're like 7, 8 years old, I'll start saying like, okay, now let's try this in a different key. Let's say G is do, re mi fa sol. That's why I never write the names of the notes in the books, because I want to start transposing as soon as possible. So this is, you know, there's now do is E flat. So when people ask like, why don't you, you know, why aren't we using the grand staff? When are they really going to learn to read? Well, this is one of the main reasons why, because I want them transposing and playing in different keys as soon as possible. By the time they get to book 5, which is written on the grand staff, I'll show you book 5 real quick. By the time they get to book 5, they should be already playing in all the keys, even though book 5 looks like this. Grand staff, a lot of ledger line work, to, you know, bass, treble, treble, bass, treble, bass, bass. This is book 5. So by the time they get here, they've already played in all 12 keys. So this is no big deal to them. Okay, the last thing I want to show you today, then we'll wrap. And again, subscribe and just ask any questions, even if you're coming to this after the chat today. Ask any questions in the comments, and I will do these in the future and hopefully answer your questions. Okay, so all of these songs in the books are written in sets of 4. So these 4, for example, are in tandem, so they're usually assigned at the same time. You can see an example of how this goes. This is a class of 4 kids, each of them playing 4 different parts. Ready, Kina, ready, go. So you can see each student is playing a different part. Okay, so the idea of this is, you know, you don't want to like practice this one and master it independent of this one, this one, and this one. They're all connected. So bonus practice track usage would be to put on the slow practice track of Sticky Magnets while you play the music of Meeting at 3, Crossing Paths, or You Then Me. So like, for example, if I go, let's do the medium version of this, but as it plays, oh, it's not going to keep playing, but as it plays, if you had the book, you could just be looking at this and playing this along with the medium practice track of Sticky Magnets. So you're hearing Sticky Magnets while you're playing Crossing Paths. That's how this method is supposed to work. You're supposed to be able to play multiple parts, meaning playing one part while hearing other parts, then switching to another part while hearing other parts. It really is important to be able to do that. Okay, thank you so much for those of you who have watched, and I will check for the comments. If you have questions, leave them in the comments. Subscribe and like. We'll do this again. I want to do it more regularly because I feel like it's just a better way to document some of the information so everybody can have access to it. All right, have a good one, and hopefully we'll see everybody again. If you have questions, just